morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from around the world. My name is Nicole Kelly, and I am a manager of recruitment and admissions over at the UBC Sauder School of Business in Vancouver, Canada. I'm also joined by my colleague, Kate. If you want to do a really quick introduction, Kate, I'll pass it over to you for a second.
Of course, thanks, Nicole. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Kate Navarro. I'm the Director of Admissions for our Management Master's program. So the MMS GBS program, which we're talking about today, over at the Yale School of Management in New Haven, Connecticut.
Fantastic. Yeah, really excited to be doing this session with you and to have so many folks joining us today for this time. So I'll again pass it over to Kate to do a quick introduction here, and then we'll jump into each of the programs in a little bit more depth.
Perfect. Thanks, Nicole. Yes. So you're joining us today because you've heard about this wonderful thing or pathway. It's called M2M, which is Master to Master. What this is an ability to essentially have two master's degrees in two different countries, in two global business schools in 2 years. So the MM, which Nicole's going to be talking about today at UBC Sauder, is a 1-year degree program. And then the Yale Masters in Global Business and Society is also a 1-year program. So the advantage of M2M is really being able to go to both UBC Sauder and go to Yale School of Management and get these two distinct business degrees in these 2 years, essentially advancing yourself to have this global career afterwards. And so the M2M pathway gives candidates the ability to apply prior to their MIM. And so if you're in your senior year of your undergraduate school, or maybe you're not, you've graduated and you're working and you're exploring master in management programs, the UBC Sauder program might be a great program for you because of this M2M pathway and being able to apply to both the MM at UBC as well as the Masters in Global Business and Society at Yale. So again, applying early and being able to plan out the next 2 years of your academic journey. So with that, Nicole, I'll hand it over to you to really talk about what the first year would look like for students if they decided on this M2M pathway.
Well, thank you so much, Kate. So I just want to kind of mention, as I talk about the UBC Sauder campus, as well as Vancouver here, that UBC's Vancouver Point Grey campus is situated on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. So you can see from the photo, we have a really beautiful campus. And when you study at UBC, there will be opportunities to learn about the land, about Indigenous people of Canada, as part of your orientation and in your curriculum. So that's a big part of our values as a school and some of the things you'll see popping up. So moving on, just in terms of starting pretty high level, if you're unfamiliar with the University of British Columbia and kind of who we are a very well-ranked university here in Canada. We are known as the #1 business school, and we have a really high also overall global ranking. So you're getting a high quality education when you come to UBC Sauder and to the University of British Columbia, as well as a really wonderful campus as well. You'll also notice too, I don't have it on the slides here, but we are the only Canadian member of what's called the Global Network for Advanced Management, which Yale is also part of. And we're really happy to be kind of part of that really prestigious network with these opportunities such as this dual degree. You'll also see too that we have a number of alumni all around the world, really spread out, and a really strong network there too. And then in terms of just Vancouver, if you're not too familiar as well, this is actually one of my favorite photos of Vancouver because I think it really does show the intersection of a lot of things coming together in Vancouver, which makes it really, really special and really unique. So you can see that we have ocean, we have mountains, and we have cities side by side, and the campus is really close to all of those things too. And so a lot of people are drawn to Vancouver for various reasons, but those opportunities that presents itself by being side by side, a lot of kind of presence of natural beauty, I think really instills a strong sustainability focus and a lot of focus on climate and those pieces, as well as being on the West Coast too, in terms of our kind of interest in entrepreneurship and startup culture and things like that too. So you can see that we are known as a very livable city, and also we have a number of companies that are homegrown that were kind of started here in Vancouver, as well as a number of kind of multinationals as well that have their base here. So in terms of getting into the MM course, and we'll just kind of move on along to the next piece here in terms of the program. So our UBC Master of Management program, which I have a few more descriptions about on the next slide, Kate, we'll just move forward. There we go. It's just a quick one there. So it's really designed for recent graduates from non-business bachelor's degrees. So you'll see at the top here, I just really want to emphasize that this program is meant for someone who hasn't studied business much, if at all, before they start our program. So sometimes people can feel a little bit worried about, if they haven't delved into it, that's actually the perfect program for you, because the intention is that it's for individuals who have studied in another area in their bachelor's degree to get a really comprehensive understanding and business knowledge by doing our 9-month Master of Management program. So you'll see in a few slides, I'll show you kind of the makeup, but students are coming from all different types of bachelor degree backgrounds. So the program really does give you that ability to elevate your career before launching yourself into the workforce. So it's meant for someone who has less than 2 years of work experience full-time after they've done their bachelor degree, or perhaps even not any on our side. I know Kate might have some different pieces on there in terms of work experience, but we really are okay admitting folks who are coming straight from their bachelor degree who want to kind of jump right into a master's program before they kind of start working. The program does include a number of different elements. So you can see we have a very kind of small cohort, 50 students with a set curriculum that you go through together. So you really build strong bonds with your classmates, and you're gaining those areas of broad spectrum of business disciplines. So everything from marketing to finance to operations and logistics. So really getting that core knowledge built up before you move on to the program with Yale, which advances that learning. Our students also get to do a 3-month consulting project. So you'll work in a small group with your peers with a real company, so a nonprofit or a social enterprise, and you'll be able to work towards some business solutions for them and have that client-based experience, which a lot of students really enjoy and really appreciate as a way to further their learning. And then finally, you'll also see too that there's really in-depth coaching for career. We know a lot of folks are looking for that career support and kind of figuring out how to take this forward and integrate it into their next steps in terms of career moves. And we also obviously have a 4-credit career development course that our students take. So it really is baked in and built into the experience as part of doing the Master of Management. And you'll see here, just as I mentioned before, the profile of our class. So this was, for example, the class of 2023. You can see that we have a number of students from various academic disciplines, but none from business backgrounds. So that really is the intention here. So we've got science students and even those who have studied architecture, humanities, etc. So really quite diverse. And a lot of people talk too about that experience being really powerful to be able to study alongside others, learning business kind of content, but in a environment where you're hearing perspectives from people who have studied in different disciplines. And that really creates a really rich learning environment and really unique group environment too for your projects. You can see we have a number of international students as well as Canadian and permanent residents in our program. And then in terms of where folks go in terms of employment, so this is kind of a high level statistic. It's not specific to the M2M, but you can see here that some of the trends that we do see folks going into a number of different areas because they have such diverse interests coming into the program too, because of such a diverse kind of cohort that we cultivate and create within the program. So a lot of really interesting opportunities. Some of these are reflective of some of the employment opportunities that are really available here in Vancouver as well. A really strong focus on healthcare, technology, and obviously financial services too, but a number of different areas that folks can go into. And I'll just make one quick point here as well, that a lot of folks who come from a certain bachelor degree, they may choose to combine their knowledge from their bachelor degree with their business knowledge from their Master of Management in their career and kind of put it into something unique. So if they come from a kinesiology background, they may take that business knowledge and go into a kind of health-based or sports-based kind of role, but with that business knowledge being really valuable. Others choose to do an entire pivot and kind of move away from the bachelor kind of area focus and focus on something maybe a bit more business related that might not connect, but they use that skill and that knowledge that they developed earlier to be able to enhance their career. And so just a kind of high-level understanding of the program timeline for the Master of Management. So the program starts every year. We just do one intake per year. It starts at the end of August and goes until the following May when folks complete their capstone. During that time, the September to January period is really about foundational knowledge and building. And then the second phase is January to May, where there's more specialized courses and a focus on that community business project that I mentioned before. Throughout, we have that career development and support and the 4-credit course that I was mentioning. And then during the summer period, it's optional. If folks want to extend their experience, they can choose to do some study abroad options during the summer if they would like to do so. And then just in terms of the admission requirements, you can see here, I'll just kind of let you work through. We have really extensive information on our website about our admission requirements. I'm also happy to take questions because I know sometimes this can cause some curiosity from individuals. But you can see that we're looking for our kind of academic achievement in terms of GPA, but we are also looking for a GMAT or GRE. If you are just applying for the Master of Management by itself, we can sometimes accept a waiver, and there's more details on our website, but I'll let Kate speak to that because I think that might be a little bit different for the Yale side. So if you're going to have your GMAT or GRE for them, if you're doing M2M, you might as well submit it to us as well. And then in terms of English proficiency, if you didn't study in a program that was taught in English, then you would need to show your English proficiency in a number of tests. There's a few more that are listed on our website as well. And then finally, we ask for references, preferably professional references if you do have some work experience or maybe even an unpaid role where you were supervised by someone, maybe volunteering and such. But academic references are also acceptable. But yeah, we do have a bit of a preference for professional if they're available to you. And then you'll write a written and as well as submit a video essay. And then if you make it to the next round, you'll be doing a personal interview too. Perfect. And then in terms of our application deadlines, you can see here that we've passed our first round deadline, but not to worry, we still have 2 more coming up for the M2M. And then you'll see if you do decide to just apply for the MM right now, the Master of Management with Sauder, and maybe thinking longer term about doing the GBS with Yale, you can also kind of look at that option too. Today we'll be focusing more on folks who are interested in applying to both right now at the same time. And in that way, you really do want to coordinate your application, apply during the same round, and submit to both of us 2 separate applications while indicating that you are applying to both, so that we're aware as well. And then we will coordinate and be able to give you your admission decision by the date that's listed. And Kate can probably talk a little bit more about that too. So I just want to highlight, we have our January 10th deadline coming up very soon. And then we also have our 3rd round deadline, which is March 11th. And just one quick thing here too on the Master of Management side. Again, if you are just applying for the Master of Management, not the M2M, so both sides right now, you could be looking at the 3rd round application deadline for international applicants. But then for us over at Sauder for the Master of Management, if you're a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, you can apply by May 6th as well. Although my strong encouragement, excuse me, would be to submit your application if you're ready, because that can be kind of helpful in terms of spaces in the program and consideration on our side. Perfect. And then just wanted to highlight a few things here. So on UBC Sauder's side, for our scholarships and awards for entrance scholarships, we do automatic consideration. So there's no need to apply to write separate essays or anything like that for each of these scholarships. We look at a very comprehensive application, as you saw on the other slide, in terms of what we collect from you just for our straightforward application. So we'll be able to assess your eligibility. And if you do receive a scholarship, you would be notified as you are receiving your offer of admission at the same time. And so just one thing to highlight too, we do have an early entrance scholarship. So for those who apply with a complete application with all of your supporting documents by January 10th, if you are a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, you would be considered automatically for our early entrance scholarship, which is the top one there. And then we have a number of other scholarships that we also look at. Perfect. So that kind of takes me to the conclusion of my particular section. I think Kate will do her presentation after this, and then we'll kind of combine the Q&A. I think that makes the most sense. But I just want to mention we have a number of events coming up, ways you can engage with us, both virtually. We do a number of online sessions. We have a career outcomes session specifically where we'll have one of our career coaches who works with our Master of Management students coming in on January 7th. So please look out for that. We encourage you to attend. And then if you're in the local area, if you're in Vancouver, we definitely encourage you. We have a few in-person events that we'll be doing, which is the chance to meet some current students in person and understand more about the program, but a lot of great opportunities coming up. And then we also have coffee chats that are offered virtually as well as in person. So please feel free to reach out and book time, and we kind of chat through any more specific questions you have on a one-to-one or a small group basis. Wonderful. Thanks so much. And back to you, Kate.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole, and thanks for telling us more about the UBC-MM. I'll do my best to get through these slides relatively quickly so we can get to the most important part, which is hearing from you and getting your questions answered. So I'm here to talk to you about the MMS, or Master of Management Studies in Global Business and Society. Like I said, a one-year degree program for students who have already obtained their Master in Management degree. And so you would be coming to Yale and you would be graduating with an MMS degree. So let's dive right into what the one-year program at Yale looks like. So what is the GBS program? And you'll hear me reference it as the GBS program because the MMS GBS program is a mouthful. And so we like to shorten our acronyms as much as possible at the School of Management, or SOM. So like I mentioned, it's a one-year degree program, and the whole point is it's customized by you. So while you are doing your really core business skills at UBC, you're then able to come to Yale to really customize and explore and do some various other business skills or topics outside of the business area. And so you're the one choosing the classes that you want to take. And I'll get into that in a little bit of what that looks like for choosing classes and where you'll be able to choose classes from. But think of it as really a year all to yourself to do what you want to do. You're also going to be joining a community of purpose. I'll talk a little bit about our mission statement at the School of Management, which is very important to us and something that you want to take note of when applying. You'll also, as a GBS student, have the ability to join all of our clubs, our events, our speaker series, and lastly, just join the Yale University Network, which is a powerful network to have in your back pocket as you continue on into the world and create this global career. So really being able to have the network at UBC in Canada, but then also have the Yale network in the US. That in itself is extremely powerful. So why pursue the GBS program? We see a lot of our students kind of exploring the program or doing the program in two different ways, but obviously each reason for doing the program is really individualized to you. So you're in your MM, and the idea is you're going to be able to build off the learnings that you get in your MM degree and really take them to the next level. So you're going to get those core business skills. You have this amazing degree from UBC. You can absolutely go into the world and start your career there. That's totally fine. But if you do want to think about another year to be able to explore it, whether that be in depth or breadth, Yale SOM is a great option for you in the GBS program. So what I mean by depth and breadth is because the courses are customized by you, you get to explore whatever you want. So maybe you want to dive deeper into a specific topic area, whether that's healthcare, whether that's nonprofit, economics, entrepreneurship. I mean, I just listed a few things here. The list goes on. Maybe you want to dive into just AI topics, become a specialist in an area and really be able to enhance your career in that focused topic. Or maybe you didn't get a chance to explore in your undergrad and you were forced into a specific major and that was your major and you're not interested in it anymore. And you're at the UBC MM and this is great, but you really want to be able to take a humanities class or an art class or a global affairs class. You can do that at Yale. When I mean that the program is customized by you, you're having the ability to take classes from all over Yale University. And that really gives you the availability of having 1,000, if not more, electives at your fingertips to choose from. So you mentioned earlier about a community of purpose, and our mission at the School of Management is to educate leaders for business and society. What does that mean? It means we're a mission-driven institution, and you're going to find the mission everywhere. It's already in the MMS Global Business and Society program name itself. And so what we're doing is we're trying to get students to think more broadly about the business topics that they're learning and to think about the different stakeholders that they're going to be impacting after graduation. So that might be in the public, nonprofit, or private sector, depending on where you go. But the idea is to really think about the decisions you're making and how they impact the world, society, and really the community at large, and not just going out there and making business decisions to make profits, but really doing good as well in the world. And so that's why we're so passionate about our mission statement. And I'm bringing this up because if you are thinking about applying to the GBS program, we are going to be asking how you relate to this mission. And so think a little bit more about how you see yourself combining business with society and what that means for your future. So let's talk a little bit about the curriculum and what your curriculum would look like at Yale after you've completed your MM at UBC. I mentioned all this flexibility, and so let's break that down a little bit further. There is one required course, Business and Government After Communism, that you'll have to take with your GBS cohort. So you'll be taking that with just your GBS cohort. It's a really great class. It's an interesting class because your classmates are coming from all over the world. You're learning about how business has been done in all different countries over, a variety of hundreds of years when, there was communism, and how the government was impacted by business. And then also potential issues that you might face today, dealing or having dealings with people from different countries, or having a business deals with countries themselves. And so it's a really interesting class that the faculty member runs for that. And then we have our advanced management courses. So you'll see up here, there's about, I think, 18 different courses listed. What you'll do is you'll be selecting 18 units of credits from these courses. Most of these courses are 2 units of credit. And so break that down, you'll be taking about 9 courses total. The good thing is you still have flexibility amongst these courses. And so while we do have a subset, you are able to pick from these subset of elective courses. A lot of these courses are business related. However, if you're interested in finance, you'll find some specific finance ones. Or if you're interested specifically in global affairs, there's some great ones here. But the idea is we took our most popular electives and put them just for GBS students. Now, lastly, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I meant to say 16 units of advanced management courses, not 18. So backing up, we'll then have half of your courses, so 18 units of elective courses for your choosing. And that means you get to choose classes from the School of Management. We have 170 different elective courses, or courses at Yale's other professional schools and graduate schools of arts and sciences. So as I mentioned, there's thousands of electives at Yale for you to choose from. And the idea here is that you get to customize half of your curriculum to do so. Lots of numbers here, lots of units. Some courses are 4 credits, some are 2 credits. So feel free to ask questions here, but the idea behind this is the flexibility. So let's take a look at the cohort and what your cohort would look like at the School of Management now that you've had a chance to look at what your cohort will look like at UBC and the MM. Here is our GBS class of 2025. We have 73 MIM graduates in this class, so the cohort size will stick right around 70 to 75 every year. These students come from 11 different Master in Management schools from all over the world, some from UBC, some from HEC Paris, HQST, Bocconi, IE, Business School, so all over the world. Our students do come with about 14 months of average work experience. That's not a requirement. There is work requirement, though. You must have at least 12 weeks of work experience. That can be internships, that can be full-time work experience. It doesn't matter, but you have to have at least 12 weeks, which I know is a little bit different from entering your MM. You'll still have plenty of time to get that over the summer or wherever it may be before you enter the GBS program. And then we do have a cap at 3 years work experience. So anywhere from 12 weeks to 3 years is the perfect sweet spot. Our students are roughly an average of 24 years old. So they're coming, right after their MIM degrees. But the averages are funny, right? They sway either way. Our student body is made up of 55% women, which is a great stat. We love to see that, especially because many business programs don't have a lot of women in them. And so we're very proud of that. And then lastly, 99% of our students are international passport holders. I will say that's not a requirement. We do welcome US citizens. However, because we're recruiting from international schools, the majority of our students are international. And then lastly, coming from 24 different countries of citizenship. I think this just displays how global this cohort is, how the ability to network with students from all over the world, to learn from students in your class from all over the world, and then also to make connections and make friendships that will last a lifetime as you potentially meet them at UBC and then come together to Yale as well. I'd like to real quick talk a little bit about our community at Yale. I think it's really important that as a GBS student, you know that you're also a Yale student, having access to these amazing different things that we have going on at Yale. We have amazing speaker series. We have great people who come to campus. We obviously have celebrities because they've done they've been to Yale before, whether that's Leonardo DiCaprio. You'll see some of these prominent names come. They don't come often, but it's a great opportunity if you're on campus to maybe see one of, an actor that you've seen before. We also have some really great CEOs, CFOs, and just amazing, individuals who are powerful in this world and making business decisions. We encourage you to come to Yale and partake in a US football game and go cheer on Yale versus Harvard. It's one of our favorite games. It's a really fun way to just put on your Yale gear and feel part of Yale and feel that spirit that we love to have here in the US and some of our colleges. We have an amazing SOM club fair. We have over 60 different clubs at the School of Management that you can join. You could join one club, you could join 5 clubs, you can join as many as you want. But the club fair is a great way for you to join, shop the different clubs, and hear from club leaders as to what that club is about, so you can get a better sense of what you want to join on campus. We have some beautiful libraries at Yale, and the history in them is just amazing. And so I would definitely suggest visiting as many libraries as you can at Yale. I want to say there's about 8 to 12 different libraries. And to think hundreds of years ago that someone sat in that exact seat that you're sitting in is quite powerful. And so get out there and explore some of the history that we have on our Yale campus. We have conferences. Those are student run, so you can absolutely take a leadership position in those, helping run one of those conferences, or just attend the conferences. But our conferences at the School of Management are student run by clubs. And so here you'll see the Yale Philanthropy Conference. We have an AI conference and healthcare conference, and the list goes on. It's really based on the different topic areas that these students have and bringing in speakers from those areas. We have a great SOM talent show, so you can come and showcase some of your talents, whether you're a singer, a musician, a poet. It's a really fun way to just be part of the community. You'll notice that you'll always have someone here doing fun things, is what I'm trying to say. There's always great things happening, and you'll really have a chance to feel part of a community and feel part of a family at the School of Management. Lastly, I'll showcase our amazing Yale Art Gallery. We also have a British art gallery, and then also our Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscripts Library. Really cool library that you have to go into. You can't take the books out, but in the middle, you'll see these stacks of really historical books that you get to look at and really have only that chance to see them at Yale University. So careers, it's always important that our students are getting jobs after the program. And I'd love to showcase some of the things that you have availability to at the SOM Career Office. So as a GBS student, you'll have access to Career Development Office just like any of our other students. Excuse me. So you'll have the opportunity to do workshops, work on your cover letter, your resume, talk about crafting your story. You'll be taking part in on-campus recruiting. You'll have a designated career support individual in our career development office. My best advice there is to work with them. Work with their career development office on a weekly basis. Get to know them. The more they know you, the better off they are to help you find that job after graduation. Something I feel like I've heard from them that our GBS students don't take advantage of enough is really connecting with them and having those touch points. So best advice there is definitely work with our career development office to help you with your job. Secondly, you'll also be having your UBC career development office. So you'll have 2 networks to help you find your career after these programs. Top industries that our students go into, I think, are pretty typical for business school students. Those are listed below, but what's not listed and what Nicole talked about are some of these great industries that are a little bit different that our students go into. So maybe that's, healthcare. That's an interesting one. Maybe it's AI. Maybe it's, supply chain management. Who knows? The list goes on. It doesn't matter what industry you're going into. It's available to you and will be able to support you to get into that industry. Students after the GBS program work all over the world. So they work in their home country, they work in the US, they go to a different country. And we work with some really amazing recruiters who come back to campus over and over again to recruit our students. So here there's some listed, but you get a general sense of we're working with global companies and we want you to have a global career. Okay, so now we hope you're interested in applying. I'll speed through these because I think they're pretty similar. If you're applying to the MM program and the GBS program at the same time as part of M2M, you'll already have all this stuff together for the most part, but you will have to submit 2 separate applications. One will go to UBC and then one will go to Yale. So I realize that's a little extra legwork. However, it's unfortunately the way that it works for this admissions process, but you can still use the same materials. So you're going to upload your transcripts from your undergraduate program, or if you've done another master's, any graduate or any degree granting programs will accept those. We'll accept your resume. You will be required to do a GMAT or GRE test score. So we are not allowed to waive this for the GBS program. It can be waived for the MM. So if you're interested in just applying for the MM, maybe you wait a year to take the GMAT or GRE to apply to the GBS. That's another option. We'll ask for 2 letters of recommendation. One is going to come from a professional source, and the second one is going to come from an academic source. You'll see in our application that it's going to ask for the dean or director of your MM program. As an M2M applicant, you don't have one because you haven't started your MM program. So we'll just take an academic recommendation. Those can be the same as what you submit through your UBC application, but your recommender has to submit them through the Yale system too. So you might talk to your recommender and say, hey, I'm applying to 2 programs. You have to submit both letter to both places just to cover your bases. We do ask a few essays, and then you'll submitted a $95 application fee before you get our video questions. It sounds like you'll be doing a video essay with UBC as well, so you'll get comfortable with being on video and responding, but don't be nervous. This is always a fun opportunity for you to come to life on paper for us. And so I love this part of the application as part of the committee. I'm sure as a candidate, you definitely feel the nerves, but my best advice is just be yourself. And then lastly, interviews are by invitation. Those are done via Zoom. As you can see on the bottom, the idea of the pathway is you'll apply, potentially get a Zoom interview. We will release decisions simultaneously with UBC for the M2M program, and then you'll have your enrollment deadline as well for both programs. If you're applying through M2M, you'll join UBC the first year, and then you'll come back to Yale and join us in mid-August in the following year. I also have our application deadlines up here. Nicole already talked through them. Round 1 has passed, but you still have plenty of time to apply for round 2 and round 3 of M2M. So please follow these deadlines to make sure your application is submitted to both UBC and Yale by this deadline so that we can review your application together and we can issue simultaneous decisions. Okay. Next question is, how am I going to afford this degree on top of the MM degree? So we do offer scholarships. I'd like to talk a little bit about those. All students are admitted, who are admitted are automatically considered for merit-based scholarships. There's no additional application or documentation required. We'll use whatever in your application to give you a merit scholarship. Those range anywhere from about $10,000 to about half tuition, and those are granted in your admission letter. If you're applying via M2M, we'll talk to you about what that looks like, because you'll have a whole nother year to potentially submit more items to get your scholarship. And so we'll talk a little bit more about how that process works for M2Ms. We do also have an international loan provider I'd like to recommend if you're looking to fund the program with a different way. There's also on-campus student employment opportunities that you can take advantage of. Those are definitely not for paying your tuition, but they're a great option for helping pay your rent or just have some fun with your classmates. Lastly, I'd also like to take the moment to have you explore our website as well. You can follow this URL at the top or join us for any of our upcoming events. We do host Q&A sessions every month, and we also have an application tips webinar coming up in December. So that's a really great webinar to watch if you're thinking about applying. We'll break down the application page by page and talk about how to show your best self. Lastly, although you can't see it in this pretty picture on the bottom right-hand corner, is our email, gbs@yale.edu. Please email us anytime, and we'd be happy to answer your questions. And I think with that, Nicole, we'd love to turn it over to questions from you, be able to answer all those. So please feel free to use the Q&A function in Zoom, and we'll be able to answer those questions for you. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Kate. It's really wonderful. It's always a good reminder to hear about what you're offering and to hear about especially the exciting kind of extracurricular opportunities. I would love to attend a football game between Yale and Harvard. That sounds really fun. I'm sure it gets quite interesting.
It is.
So I see another question coming in here from Christine. So wondering about the optional summer abroad in the Master of Management program. So yes, technically your program for the Master of Management would finish in May, but some students choose to take on that international experience, which is a really great opportunity too. And so while you're in the Master of Management program, there will be a chance to indicate your interest in doing these opportunities. So you don't need to worry about pre-applying before you start Master of Management. It will be kind of made clear to to you when you're in the program, when those opportunities are available to be applied to. So there's basically two main pathways to do some optional summer abroad opportunities. One is our Global Network Week. So as part of being part of the Global Network for Advanced Management, we have opened it up. I believe our most recent cohort was able to participate in some of our Global Network Weeks, which basically means traveling to one of the partner schools in GNM, so around the world, and doing a week-long intensive course for credit where they get to learn from one of those partner schools. So a really great opportunity, a very condensed experience. You're in classes and doing kind of some experiential pieces, visiting maybe local businesses and kind of spending that time together for a full week, but it is for credit. So you would indicate your interest and apply for that. And there's a lot of opportunities. So I think it's more just about interest and availability to go on these things. And you can, I believe, rank your preferences too. And then another opportunity for some optional summer abroad would be a little bit longer term experiences. So there are a number of opportunities that our students can choose from that range anywhere from about 3 to 7 weeks, I believe, to do a summer abroad. Again, it would largely be likely one course that you're taking over that time period. It would probably be specific and local to that area, is often the case. A lot of schools will offer these experiences where it's learning about something related to business in that particular area, that particular region. And so you would be able to kind of rank and select your preferences while you're in the Master of Management program and go off to do that experience. I believe, I'm just trying to think of one of the experiences I know one of our students participated in. I can try and find the article in a moment, was a course about kind of the luxury sector in France. And so one of our students got to go and experience kind of learning about how that industry works, visiting a few different locations. And so they were kind of going around, and it was a really interesting experience. So you can see very much hyper-local learning is often a really big benefit to doing that kind of optional summer abroad too. So yeah. Wonderful. We have another question here. Okay, so someone mentioning around doing their B+MM May to December. So yeah, that makes sense in terms of the timelines you've mentioned.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And Helen, if you are interested in applying through M2M, this is great. So you're going to start your MM portion in May. You could apply then in May 2026. So I would apply then likely in 2025 to us. So prior to starting your MM. So any of those application deadlines. So whether that's, June, essentially the idea is you would know prior to starting your MM that you've gotten into the GBS program. What doesn't necessarily line up that I want to make aware is the December stop date. So a lot of programs, MM, would actually finish in May. And so you just kind of have that summer to whether it's do an internship or to, pack and get ready to come to Yale for August. If you do the B+MM, there's a chance that you graduate in December. You then have a longer time frame before you start in August. So you'll have to think through, does this make sense for the timeline? What will I do from December until August? A lot of students will get an internship, whether that's a 6-month internship. They'll be able to make up those 12 weeks that you need to have prior to coming. But something to think about too, because there will be a gap there.
Yeah, it's a good point, Kate. And I also want to recognize too, for our B+MM students, because they are doing kind of straight into their Master of Management portion, it's pretty intensive. So I think in those cases, some people may choose to take a bit of a pause, maybe travel or like kind of spend time with family or something like that, because I know that going through straight from your bachelor degree and then going right into the 6-month MM, like right away, can be a little bit intense for some folks. So I think, yeah, in some cases, some people might appreciate a bit of a pause too. So up to them to decide how they want to spend that time. Yeah, wonderful. I don't see any new questions coming in, but please keep them coming. It's really, really nice to hear from all of you. Actually, Kate, I wondered if I could pose a question, just because I think those who are listening to the recording or on the call might find it interesting. So you were mentioning the advanced management courses and the electives that the GBS students take. And I was curious to know what kind of class makeup is in those courses. So are the students studying alongside only other GBS students, especially in those advanced management courses? Are they studying alongside other master's program students from other kind of opportunities, MBA students, who's kind of in their class?
That's a great question, Nicole. And I should have touched on this earlier. Pardon me, this is a smaller slide deck. And so I missed a portion that I typically
No,
say.
it's fine.
And to your point, yes. So all those electives that you're taking, so half of your credit hours that you'll be selecting from, those are classes with our MBA students, our MAM students, other MMS students. So they're with anyone within the community who wants to take them. So it's a great opportunity for you to be in classes with MBA students. So what you will just be taking with your GBS cohort is that one required course. And then when you take whatever advanced management courses you do take, because of the flexibility, those will also just be with your GBS classmates. So the opportunity to network is twofold. One, you'll be with your GBS classmates a good portion of your year, but half of the classes that you're taking are really with anyone from around Yale University.
That's really, really nice to hear. What an opportunity to kind of build your network and to meet others, and especially across programs. I think that's really wonderful. And I think a nice compliment, like the amount of choice that Yale offers through the GBS program, is kind of a good contrast to the Master of Management program, which is very structured. You take the courses that are kind of you need to really get that foundational knowledge in business. And so having the kind of courses laid out for you in the first portion of the dual degree, and then having so much flexibility in the second portion, I think is a really nice balance. So yeah, wonderful. Just seeing if there's any other questions. If not, I have another one for you too. I'm learning. It's great. I'm really appreciating the chance to
Great.
learn more. Oh, I see another one coming in.
There are no real restrictions around the 12-week work requirement that we have. This can be done via internship or full-time work. It doesn't matter what kind of company you work for, the position you work for. It could be part-time, it could be full-time, it could be remote, it could be in person. It doesn't matter. What we want to see is that you've gotten some professional work of some sorts, and you're I think part of this goes with one, you have the experience. And I think the second part of this goes for is how are you going to be recruiting on campus? A lot of recruiters are going to want to see that you've had experience in maybe one of the fields that you're interested in going to, or that you just had any professional experience so far. And so it might be a disadvantage for you to recruit with other GBS students who have 1 year of work experience and you maybe don't have really anything. And while you can get a job either way, I think it's just beneficial to have any sort of work experience before you come. It does not matter where.
Question on that in terms of Yale GBS work experience requirements. So someone who's applying, for example, maybe right now, and they haven't had that work experience, they go in to do the MM with Sauder, and then they get the 12 weeks minimum work experience after after they've already kind of been admitted. So when they're applying to you right now, they might not have that 12-week work experience. So
Yeah.
does that change things in terms of competitiveness of application? Because you wouldn't be able to see that work experience. How much does the work experience play into an applicant's profile?
It's a really great question. So I wouldn't say you're at a disadvantage per se. I think it's always all about how you tell your story. And so if you can tell your story through the application, maybe why you haven't had internship experience so far. Maybe your summers have been packed full of taking care of your sick grandmother. Who knows? I don't know your story. And so my best advice is for us to not be left questioning why, but rather know what's going on. And so if you can say why you haven't had work experience, great. Another option is maybe you're going to be getting a certain internship or know that you're going to be looking for one. Also explain that in the application. We have absolutely admitted students who have zero work experience knowing that they're going to be getting it before they come. It's also very cultural in some places to not do that. And so there's no disadvantage. It's really all about telling us why, how you're going to get it, and kind of, again, putting together the story of how this all makes sense for you.
See another one coming in just yet. So maybe I'll take the opportunity to ask you a quick follow-up question on, I think one of your slides you were mentioning how the scholarship review, or like the kind of consideration for scholarship for the Yale GBS might be a little bit different for someone who's applied for the M2M, but then gained a lot of good experience doing the Sauder MM, but they've already kind of gotten their offer from the Yale M2M, and they might not have been considered for a scholarship that they may want reconsideration based on their involvement in doing the MM and kind of the things they've achieved there. So could you speak to, like, would someone reapply for scholarship consideration, or how does that work for an M2M applicant?
Great question, Nicole. So, this is an area where we've kind of gone back and forth a little bit over the years as to how
Mhm.
best to implement this. Because, as an M2M student, you're not joining the class that we're recruiting for that particular year. You're joining 2 years out. And so, originally, when the GBS and M2M program started, we were issuing scholarships to M2M candidates within the year that they applied. And we realized that was not being fair because, to your point, they do a lot in that year at their year one school. Maybe you get super involved and you become class president. Who knows? Those are great accomplishments that really should be merited in your scholarship. And so, what we've done now is you're in your so you get admitted to the M2M program and you're in your year one school. We are going to reach out to all admitted M2M candidates to fill out a form, essentially a scholarship consideration form. That's where you would talk about some of those accomplishments that have happened since you applied, what you've been doing, provide supportive documentation. Maybe you got an internship. There are so many things that it could be, but you will have an opportunity to tell us what those things are prior to us essentially having you enroll by a certain deadline after that January. So the other option is maybe decide to take a gap year. We do allow gap years between the MM and the GBS program. And again, it's all about, does this make sense for you and your story? Maybe you get a job offer and you have no work experience and you want to go work somewhere for a year before you then build off, your business skills in the MM. That's totally fine. Some of our students do that. And some of our students don't. It doesn't make sense to put another year in between 2 degrees. They just want to come one after another. Why I'm saying this is because I think it's important to know the different options. And when it comes back to scholarships, just know that we are going to make sure that you have an opportunity to tell us about new things you've done since you've applied, because sometimes that's a year, post when you actually were enrolled.
Really good to hear. I'm sure people appreciate that kind of consideration, and yeah, such a good point that there's a lot that happens in a year that people can really gain into their toolkit, and yeah, wonderful.
Of course.
I just want to open it up. I know we're chatting away, which is great, getting lots of good information out here. But yeah, if there's any other questions from some of the folks on the call, feel free to pop those into our Q&A section. We'd love to answer anything you're wondering. And we'll also be sending kind of a follow-up email with our contact details and a recording of the session, I believe, too, so that you can have that available to you. Kate, a
Absolutely.
question that I'm thinking of right now, just based on kind of what we're talking about with that gap period. I'm curious to know if there's consideration if someone got accepted to the M2M, so they applied to both of us at the same time by this same deadline, and they got an offer for both schools. Would there ever be a case where someone would be able to defer their start date? So like if they yeah, just in terms of if life happens and they're realizing that they do need a bit more time, how would that look if they've been admitted for a certain entry point already and they wanted to start a bit later?
That's a great question, and I think students can defer at the front of the program or even in
Mm.
between the two programs. And so, if you decide you're admitted through M2M, you're going to be joining UBC in August, and then something happens and I can't join UBC in August. I now need to defer for a year. That would be up to UBC to approve
Of
that. If
course.
UBC does approve your 1 year deferral, we will automatically approve yours too, because although we're separate degree programs, separate admissions process, M2M really is a pathway together. And so we're going to help follow whatever year one school is doing in year two. So if you want to defer from the M2M programs, reach out to UBC and we'll work with them on that and defer you at Yale. Now, in between that gap year piece, so you do your MM and then you're planning on coming to Yale, but you now can't come for another year. We will approve that as a gap year. You'll get, even if it's a deferral, it will technically be counted as a gap year. All M2M candidates are allowed one gap year. After that, we don't typically allow deferrals, gap years, just because it then starts to be a little too far out from your MM. You could potentially be getting too much work experience beyond the 3 years of the program itself. But I think everything is awarded a conversation and everything is one-to-one on a one-on-one basis. So always reach out with your particular case and we can talk about it.
Yeah, and I would echo that too. It's really good to know kind of how you might approach that. But I feel like, yeah, a lot of these are conversations to have if there's something that pops up and kind of inquiring about it. So yeah, and we have our own deferral policy that we kind of look at too. So yeah, it's just good to know that be in touch with us. And I think given the nature of kind of the relationship with the dual degree, be in touch with both of us. And that's a great way to kind of navigate. So yeah.
It's always good to be
Wonderful.
over communicative
Yes, I would agree.
when
Yeah.
it comes to logistics.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions come through. Is there anything else, Kate, that you wanted to? Oh, I do see one more, actually. Thank you.
Yeah, I saw Helen wanted to know a
Campus.
little bit more about campus life. Yeah, did you want to talk
Yeah.
about your campus first, Nicole?
Sure. Yeah. So just in terms of kind of and I think Helen might be one of the individuals who's already in the at UBC Sauder. So I'll maybe
Oh,
keep it
great.
brief. Or sorry, at UBC doing the B plus FM. So she probably knows a little bit about Vancouver. But for those tuning in, I can speak a little bit about that. But I'll leave more time for you. So yeah, Vancouver and kind of where we're situated in the city. We're kind of on the west part. We're a little bit off to the side of the downtown core, but we have this like beautiful kind of really collegiate campus feeling, being in a little bit of almost like a nature oasis. So it's really like a very large campus, but very distinct in terms of its area and positioning in the city. And a lot of students do choose to live either on or nearby campus, just for the convenience, and just it's a very accessible place to be in the city as well. Yeah, and in terms of housing options, the biggest thing I would say for UBC is to apply early. We do have a number of both residence type offerings, but also some on-campus housing that's kind of privately run, that a number of students choose to go for. So kind of being flexible, being open. Housing is a challenge in a large city, in a beautiful city like Vancouver, but our students do end up finding something. And then I would say just be proactive, put your name on the housing wait list. You actually can do that. It's an interesting fun fact about UBC is you can put your name on the wait list before you actually get admitted to our programs. And then if you do get an admission and you kind of work down the wait list, then they might be able to offer you a spot. So it's an interesting kind of approach to really get ahead of the game there. If you're thinking that you might like to come to UBC, you can always indicate your interest to our housing office early. So over to you, Kate, for things on Yale side.
Yeah, also super interesting to hear how you can sign up for housing at UBC. So thanks for that, for my own knowledge. So at Yale, is situated in New Haven, which is a smaller city, and every part of it is Yale. We joke around about that is no matter where you go, there's Yale in New Haven. And so our campus is very spread out. Our medical campus is all the way over on the other side of the highway. And then all the way up to the Divinity School, which is on the other side of campus, all the way. It spans a couple miles. And so everything's walkable for sure. But if you're going over to medical school, I would definitely hitch a ride on our Yale University bus. And so we do have buses that go around that are free to all of our students to get anywhere. When it comes to living on or off campus, we do have dormitories for graduate students. So there is graduate dorms. That tends to be the cheaper option for a lot of our students. It's very much kind of the typical undergraduate dormitory. So if that's for you, totally great. Those fill up quickly for graduate students. And so my best advice as well is apply early. You do have to be admitted and enrolled, though. There is technically a wait list as well. I think housing usually comes out in February, March, and that's when net IDs are also created. That's kind of your ID in order to apply. It means you're a student. And so, yeah, apply early if you're interested in graduate dorms. There's also private run graduate housing. It's through Yale, but it's not dorms. They're apartments run through Yale. Also apply early for those. And then a lot of our students do off-campus housing. And I say off-campus because it's not. Everything is still so close. It's technically not Yale campus, but everything's so walkable. And a lot of those are apartments run by landlords all around town. My best advice is talk to previous students or current students to see where they're living. Sometimes there's an advantage where students will be able to essentially hand over to the next set of students versus you having to actually go and find a place. And so it's always good to talk to current students if you're interested in getting an apartment and find out, hey, when are you leaving? Can you set me up with this apartment? Or they might be able to even show you what there is. But a lot of the old houses in New Haven have been turned into apartments. So we have apartment buildings and then homes that are like apartments. I promise you'll find a place to live. It all just depends on how much you want to walk. And I'm bringing this up because the winter months. So we have very intense winters in New England. And so something to think about how far you want to live away and just making sure you have transportation to and from class or good boots and a good coat.
I think it's interesting. The contrast between kind of our two programs, two cities, is kind of just the weather differences too. So I think, yeah, being prepared for quite different weather experiences, but really beautiful in their own ways, I'm sure, in terms of what to expect. And yeah, I think the beauty of the kind of combined degree is two very unique experiences out of your master's programs.
Absolutely. Two very different cities. I've been to Vancouver a couple times now. And while New Haven's beautiful, beautiful Vancouver. There's nothing more breathtaking than Vancouver. It's a beautiful city itself. So
I think, yeah, I have to make it out to New Haven sometime, but I'm originally from like Ontario, Toronto, and so I feel like there's some beauty in that kind of winter wonderland kind of experience too that I'm sure you
that is true.
experience in your side
Absolutely.
of the world. Yeah.
Once in a
Wonderful.
lifetime.
So I think we're getting close to time.
Ooh,
If there's any other questions, again, I would just encourage folks, we'll be sending a follow-up email. You can always reach out to us, as Kate was mentioning too. I know we on both sides do a lot of different events for our specific programs, but if you have any questions specifically about the M2M, you can ask either of us and we'll be able to cross-refer you if we think it's better answered by the other individual. So yeah, and I do see one more question. Do you have a minute or two, Kate, or should we?
yeah, no
I'm
problem
not
at
sure what
all.
you're,
Yep.
okay. Oh, actually, no, never mind. I thought there was one. I think it just removed when we saw we answered it. So yeah, I think we're probably good on the questions unless you see any other ones there, and
Perfect.
we can probably close up the session.
Hi.
So thanks so much for attending to all of those on the call. Thank you, Kate. This was really fun and great to be able to kind of provide the
Absolutely.
information together in a combined way.
Absolutely.
Over to you for final remarks and to close us out.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Please reach out to us directly. We'd be happy to answer your questions, learn more about M2M, which is this own animal of its own. We joke around that we're still always trying to understand what M2M is, but just know that you have this really unique opportunity, and hopefully we see some of your applications this year. If you're already in your B plus MM, please write to me at gbs@yale.edu. I can answer any of the specific questions that you might have about when to apply, when your program starts, when you'd start the GBS. Let's talk more. I'd love that. Thanks, Nicole. Great to see you. And hopefully we'll set up another webinar soon for those who are interested. But until next time.
Sounds good. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.